Hi, welcome to Fort 1E. I'm your host, Evan, the only host of Fort 1E, the podcast.
That is a lie.
I think we're getting interference. I don't know what that is.
That is a straight up lie. This is the other host of Fort 1E, the podcast, Greg.
Oh yeah.
And
oh yeah. I forgot.
We are in Fort 1E. It's a theoretical place where there's real conversation.
Yeah. Where is that?
Fort 1E.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you were able to make it. I was ready to be the only host, but luckily you just showed up at the last minute, and I appreciate that.
Should we have some intro music? All right, that's good for intro music.
Beautiful. How have you been, dude?
Well, what were you asking?
How have you been doing?
How have I been doing?
Yeah, dude.
I'm going fucking mad. But luckily, this Japanese supermarket opened up across the street, so I have unlimited access to red bean, like mochi, like mint chocolate chip mochi, like ice cream, like lots of ramen and like salty snacks with different symbols that I have no idea what things mean, but I thankfully they have English translations, so I'm hoping they're just not lying. But
hopefully.
I've just been trying. I want to try everything. I've got a gallon of soy sauce.
Delicious. You should just like take it to the face.
Start chugging the soy sauce.
All in one go. Right now. If you want to be on the podcast, you have to do it. This is called episode 1, hazing. I was gonna ask if that ice cream is like vegan, or if it's got actual. Oh, that's the soy sauce. He actually got it. He actually got the soy sauce.
Larger than my head.
It is a metal container of soy sauce, larger than this gigantic person's head.
Yeah, so I'm not going to chug it, but I probably won't eat soy sauce again for quite a while.
For at least another week.
I'm just like shooting it up.
Yeah, you got like an IV. Just playing Call of Duty with an IV of soy sauce.
It's just like drip, drip, drip. My eyes are just like expanding.
Triple kill.
Overkill.
Yeah, I don't know if those are in Call of Duty or not. I just played Halo. But is that mochi ice cream vegan, or is it actually...
No, fuck that. I've just been having dairy pills. I'm way past the point. I'm just like, whatever. I'll deal with it.
Fuck those cows.
I'm lactose intolerant, but luckily lactase enzyme, really helps with symptoms.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is that what's in the pill?
Yes.
It's like, are you on the pill?
That was always the pill for me growing up, and then I learned about the other pill.
That'd be funny, a commercial. It's like a cow, but it's like sort of like a human-looking cow, and she's like all sexy, and he's like, oh, you need to be on the pill. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense, because the guy, yeah, never mind. Forget my idea.
Want a drink? Want a drink? Wait, are you on the pill?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Got pill. Yeah, they should have done that.
Great fucking commercial.
They should definitely pay us for that idea.
Like a skinny cow.
What's that?
Just like a really skinny, like, model cow.
Yeah, some sort of, like if you tried to, shape a cow like a Barbie doll, or something like that.
Right, but just has more tits.
Yeah, I mean, udders, right?
That'd be an amazing commercial. I'd watch all of that.
I would watch it so often. That's the only way I would spend my time. Why are you going mad? What's maddening you?
Well, I'm basically not in interaction with any human beings for more than 20 seconds at a time in person.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, I mean, I always took for granted how isolated I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Like in the beginning, I was like playing like loud music a lot and like smoking cigarettes and like really like just going all in. And now I'm just like like fading back into this, like being content with not being okay
Mm-hmm.
and just waiting it out.
But being not being too afflicted with loneliness or anything like that. You were able to keep yourself entertained with loud music and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, still, I just play my music a little bit lower just in case like someone's sleeping. And the cat is actually all I needed for companionship. I could, for all that matters, this is a desert island, and I'm with my cat, like whatever. It's all the same.
Well, that's nice. Cats definitely help.
But it's better because there's this Japanese supermarket, so I gotta go. I'll try to like make some sort of like polite conversation with the people in the store, but I never really know what the hell to say in that situation. It's usually just so hilarious that everyone just ends up laughing, and then I leave. That's it.
Wait, when you try to do what? Like you try to talk to the cashier or something, or?
Yeah. Or the cashier, other people in the store, the people next to the aisles. Like I'll actually actively comment on the food in the aisles. Like it's amazing. Like there was no grocery store there.
You're like the narrator of the grocery store.
I'm like, oh my god, is that mochi? Holy shit, mint chocolate chip mochi. Like I'm actually like being horrible because I just haven't talked to the people and I don't care. I need to just talk to people.
Yeah, that's not being the narrator. That's being the crazy guy.
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they didn't know it was there. And I'm making their lives better because now they know that this amazing thing is freely available to them out of nowhere.
Yeah, I see.
Look
That's
how
good.
appealing this is. Look how appealing.
Wow. That bag is extremely appealing.
Like, what the fuck? Seaweed and salt potato chips.
Seaweed and salt potato chips.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, this looks so apt. Like, oh my god. Like, who cares what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Like, this is gonna be amazing.
Are the chips made of seaweed, or are they potato with seaweed flavor?
No, they're just like mashed potatoes, seaweed, salt, other stuff, formed in chip. It's amazing.
They just hire really buff guys to mush it all together.
The bats do it. The bats just like munch up the seaweed and potatoes. The bats and they're just spit it out.
What bats?
The same bats that cause the spread of the virus.
Oh my. I was gonna say the S word, but that's a bad word. Oh, squirt.
That's a very good word.
Oh, Blastoise. Yeah, you should just... Pokemon work as cuss words for sure.
Diglett.
Jinx already kind of is just like a thing that like you say if it comes up in a conversation. Say the same thing at the same time. Jinx, it's Pokemon.
That was a little far-fetched for me.
Oh, Squirt. Oh, Squirtle. Yeah, I was actually just reading about the origin of coronavirus, and it was talking about bats. It's on some CDC website. Yeah, what is the source of the virus? COVID-19 is caused by a coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. So SARS-CoV-2. I'll say coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that are common in people and many different species of animals, including camels, cattle, cats, and bats. Rarely, animal coronaviruses can infect people and then spread between people. This occurred with MERS-CoV and SARS-CoV, and now with the virus that causes COVID-19, which is SARS-CoV-2.
Ebola.
No, it's not Ebola. But there's a different disease it seems to be related to. I clicked the link, but there's like a scare about a disease called SARS years ago.
That was 28 or something.
28?
2008.
2008, yes.
Oh, 8.
Oh, wait. 2008, people were concerned about SARS. Apparently, that is, like, in a meaningful way related to COVID-19. And then I don't know about this MERS thing, but it rings a bell. Either way, it says that it appears to have come from bats. Originally, every time. I don't think it means that other animals couldn't have also, like, gotten the disease maybe or something like that, but the origin was bats.
Maybe their genomes are close enough to humans that it can make the jump.
Apparently in this case, yeah, so a virus is just trying to do whatever it can to replicate and not die as well as it can. And it seems that with this strain, whatever it does to succeed in bats can sometimes also work in humans to some extent. And maybe in most coronaviruses it's a very small amount, so they would immediately die if anyone got, like, you know, if there was a COVID-14, you know, maybe there was and someone got it, but, like, it didn't have enough advantages in the human body, so it just went extinct almost immediately. But apparently this one had enough, you know, mutations, evolutions, changes, and adaptations, and ability to adapt as well. So it also has some ability to adapt to new environments, and it has some combination of that, and when it came in contact with humans, it was able to, from its perspective, kick ass and do a great job. Yeah.
We are this virus's bitch right now. And we very well may continue to be forever. And, I mean, we're just going to eventually learn to get along with it or die.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like it should become an infrequent thing again if we keep it from spreading for long enough. And we, you know, fort up, as they say, and hang out and chat on the internet and wait until it's thoroughly defeated, or at least defeated enough.
Yeah. Well, goddamn. The response has definitely, we've talked about this, but the response to the virus, you know, is its own phenomenon. That,
Indeed.
you know, really we have to separate the havoc from the virus itself just so we can start to disassemble the havoc.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it is all caused originally by the disease, but, you know, the thing that I keep thinking about is, if we already know that pandemic diseases can happen, like, there should have been more preparation. There may have even been things that were set up in preparation that got cut. I'm definitely not an expert on that, but it seems like whatever people in charge of things were doing, they should have spent more time on this. because now it's affecting a lot of people. And the economy, even worse. Even worse than hurting people, it could be hurting the economy.
The economy isn't even a thing now. It's now the idea of something that used to be, and the remnants of still remain, and now need to be reformulated in a way that maybe is more resistant to invisible forces.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there is an inevitability in an economy existing, but we don't want it to. He's chugging the soy sauce. We don't want there to be ways to take advantage of things unfairly, which makes sense. I'm actually looking at the graph of daily cases now on the Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins. I thought I might have been imagining that S, but it's there. Johns Hopkins University website, and for a bit we had been putting in lower highs on the daily cases, but the past two, let's see, what kind of day was the 15th of the week? That was a Friday. Yeah, it usually spikes on Fridays and Saturdays. Fridays specifically. I talked to Sarah about this. People probably are like, let's say on Tuesday or Wednesday you feel like you might be a little sick, but you work from home or you work outside, so you still have a job to do where you're not going to get anyone infected, for example. You would still wait most likely till the end of the week to go to a doctor. Like on Friday, at some point I'll go get checked out. And so I think part of the reason the number of daily cases spikes on Fridays is not because more people get it on Friday, but because more people go and get checked on Fridays. But regardless, if you look at the Fridays, they had been getting lower up until the 8th. And now the 15th and the 21st are both up. But that could be because of improved testing. I think there has been probably continued increase in the rate of testing as well, so.
For sure.
Need to think about that too.
Yeah, personally, I'm not in a hurry to get tested. I thought a lot about it, and I think that if my employer requires me to get tested before I start work again, I'll get tested. Otherwise, really what's, the positive and negative diagnosis is going to do for me, it's not going to change my health.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still being as precautious as anyone.
As precautious?
As cautious.
Somewhere between precocious and cautious.
I'm so cautious, I'm precautious.
Dude, yeah, I like that. Precautious? That's write that down.
Way more efficient than post-cautious.
Oh my.
Post-cautious is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. It's like hitting the brakes after. Like, no
it's
good.
Like after you come.
Or that. Yep. Actually, in the United States, the number of daily cases did descend the past 2 Fridays. So the U.S. is actually still doing the right thing, apparently. So that's good, but like
United States.
This is a sign that we need to keep doing it to some extent. The reduced
Social
numbers,
distancing.
yeah, like that shouldn't end. But people do.
Honestly, I don't
want
think it should not have gone this far. But it's been this far for so long now, for months.
Yeah.
Like, it
Well,
should not have been. Maybe it should have been this bad at its worst for maybe a month. Like, we should have ramped down and then ramped up.
the
Like, we were completely incapable of formulating a plan to successfully do that.
apparently the like if you look at the very beginning of the daily cases, it goes up exponentially. And each day that we didn't stop it from rising and get it to start going down was like, another day or exponentially worse. Every single one of those that went up, it started to add weeks on to how long this is going to take by the end of it. It took us so long to get it to start going down. And I definitely don't really know why that is the case specifically, but it does appear like there wasn't much of a plan. That's all I can say for sure.
Yeah, it was completely overlooked.
And, so, for example, if you run a business that is selling food, like a grocery store, you want to be able to continue to do your business, so it's in your best interest to be able to sell people food, but having like aisles of vegetables that everyone's grabbing is not ideal for a pandemic situation. Ultimately, what some grocery stores did, which was to some extent necessary because of the situation, they continued to stay open and had their workers wear masks and do as many things they could possibly do to be safe, but ultimately they were putting themselves, the people working there, at a much higher risk. And it was because providing food was deemed very important, which it is. So they were allowed to stay open, and the business chose to stay open, and at least enough people continue to work there. Whether or not they get compensated more for risking getting sick or not, I don't know. But
I think they should.
we did all get the infusion, so there is at least that, regardless. But what I think about is how I get vegetables in the mail every 2 weeks.
But that was
And so
yeah.
that's doable. That like there's now a plethora of businesses that can do delivery. Now, I don't know how realistic it would be to do delivery for everyone that needs food from Stop and Shop, but I feel like there could have been more preparation and had some amount of that, like for the elderly and for, people that are blind or would otherwise have trouble already getting groceries,
How about relief from the government, like giving money for groceries, like
Well,
working with like an app or something with a company that delivers food to all Americans, sending everyone like standard supplies.
right, but that might be a good idea, but what I'm saying
Let
is
them
that,
select supplies out of the list or something. But yeah, go
sure,
ahead.
Stop and Shop or other grocery stores could have spent time and money becoming prepared for this kind of situation and having trucks ready that would be safe for a pandemic situation and would allow them to deliver a lot of different things to a lot of different people efficiently. And I would imagine that this is just one example of grocery stores. There are surely others where the business was deemed essential and it stayed open, but people were put at more risk, which means the virus spread more. And if instead, and this, I'm talking about capitalism. I'm talking about the business should have spent more money becoming prepared rather than talking about like getting the government involved, because it would be in their best interest, and it's kind of like it should almost be illegal for them to ask their employees to put themselves in the situation. So they should, to some extent, be held accountable. Maybe not, but they could have helped.
The customer is not in the primary line of reasoning for business models.
Well,
it's
I'm
profit.
But I'm more so the employees in this situation. But either way, trying to make money, and so if you don't have to spend money preparing trucks and a delivery system, then you won't, and you can distribute money for other things. It seems like one way this could have worked out better is if there was some requirement of some kind for businesses that are deemed essential to be prepared for this situation, and that they do have to spend X percentage of their money or this much money per year on R&D and preparation, because your idea of having like tokens or cryptocurrency or some way of getting groceries without paying is great, but that still doesn't make all of the trucks and all of the different computer software people would use to organize that many deliveries. All of that wouldn't just come into existence. If they had already made all of that, then your idea is way more useful, and also other people would also be able to, it would just alleviate the problem. And I imagine there's plenty of businesses that could have done this.
Well, I mean, possibly, if companies don't want to spend money in that fashion, maybe it's up to the government to make sure that there is this emergency program in place where there's cooperation between businesses or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if you can't pay people to get along, you can hire someone to be a moderator.
Yeah, like the health inspector. Like there's certain conditions that a cooking environment have to meet for health reasons. And that's the government, periodically peeking in and putting down a few rules just so everybody can safely, comfortably eat at restaurants and other awesome stuff. And maybe we should also have a similar, you need to be doing by law some amount of effort into being prepared for this kind of situation, if it would make sense. So like in a grocery store where it winds up getting deemed essential, then those kinds of businesses. Obviously, if you're a business that you're like a telecommunications business and like you're purely on the internet all the time, then you don't need it. But that seems like, it's just like you were saying. It already exists in health inspectors.
Yes.
And the businesses have to spend money and time to pass those inspections.
There's billions of dollars in health organizations making sure that people don't get sick, but such lack of attention to when people actually get sick that, maybe there should just be another organization or some shit, like, to deal with that.
Maybe. I don't know enough about. I mean, I guess the CDC, disease control.
Yep, Center for Disease Control.
Okay, and I mean, it's working now. Whatever we're doing appears to be working now. I don't.
There should be like a gear shift already set in place. Like we went from operating full speed, like New York is like pushing the RPMs, 8,000, 9,000, and then we just went to zero. And I think the biggest damage was done in the drop off, and now getting acclimated to the drop off. If we would have incrementally maybe ramped down so that we knew how to incrementally ramp back up. I really think that some sort of rational plan that should have been thought about that wasn't.
Yeah.
Like we have terror threat levels. Why can't we have like disease threat levels?
Sounds
really
right.
not. We should have had that shit in place, but we have to just think about this going forward. Only thing to do.
That's all we can do at this point. And continue to try and deal with what we're facing now. But it seems like this is something that a lot of, or at least some amount of attention needs to be given to preparation to bust out a bunch of masks. Things like that will need to be kind of queued up, just like we have a bunch of bombs queued up in case, other humans do things we don't like. We should have some apparently, just based on this, more queued up to deal with microorganisms we don't like.
Like people with 3D printers should be contacted and given specs to print and materials to print masks.
Mm-hmm.
Like it all seems very doable.
I think that wound up happening in response, but once again, it would have been nice if they were precautious.
If this deficit were identified and really made public, like what the hell would we do if everyone needed to go to the hospital once?
Yeah.
No one thought about that, or the people that do think about that stop thinking about it for some reason.
I do not really look at news things, so I don't really know. But it does sound like if there was already, good designs for masks to be made with 3D printers, that would have also been good instead of needing to come up with them in response. And though the library I work at, Rogers Moore Library, just got a 3D printer to assist in the creation of masks and face shields and things like that. So that's one bonus of this, is that when I go back to work, we'll have a 3D printer.
So so that's the thing, they're like, we're going to need people with 3D printers to print masks? Because, damn, that's I thought that was my idea, but
no,
I'm glad that. So.
Well, one thing I can tell you for sure is that the Suffolk County Library System, so all of the libraries in Suffolk, contributed all of their 3D printers to the main SCLS building, the main Suffolk County Library System building, and a few people just stayed there cranking out face shields and masks. And we did not have a 3D printer, but they said, hey, do you want to, buy one, and we'll just send it, don't even have it sent to you, just have it sent to us, and we'll use it to make masks. But then when this is all over, it'll be yours. So, and apparently we were like, hell yeah.
I thought you talked about getting 3D printer previously, but apparently not.
No, I have. There's been 2 separate times where we borrowed one, but we never actually convinced anyone to buy one. But now we have.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a silver lining. And it's also cool that my library was able to just sort of, get on top of doing something to help people, One of the many important things that libraries can do. And you think you got corona, right? From your dad, he went to the city or something?
My dad tested positive for it.
Okay. But you also said you had a fever somewhere around the time he went to the city?
I saw him before he thinks he got it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a week before he showed symptoms, I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe a month after he stopped showing symptoms, I saw him again.
Okay.
So, all bets are off. My mom did not test positive, and she was living in the same house as him.
Oh. You mean positive for antibodies?
Yes. And the presence of the virus. But I think they're just doing antibody tests.
Yeah, but the test was for antibodies.
Yep.
Well, it happens.
Test negative somehow. I have no idea how.
I mean, I was reading about, like, can you get it outside, basically? And, like, it seems like the answer is yes. But assuming, like, you aren't really being completely isolated, if you or someone else isn't being completely isolated and they're in the same room as you, that's generally a lot worse than, like, being outside on a beach with maybe 100 people, but everyone's really spread apart. Like, apparently the latter case is probably safer than being inside with people, for a number of different reasons, but ultimately the best is to just be inside and never leave or see anyone else. That's still the best.
For the spread of the disease, sure.
Yeah.
For sanity, we can't think about sanity at this point. We're so beyond that.
I just walk outside when there's no one there at like 4 a.m. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I just walked to the Japanese store.
That works too.
I mean, I should go for a walk, but, you know, naps are so alluring that it's been a struggle. Like, there's really no motivation to actually leave if I really think about it.
I mean, you shouldn't be, theoretically.
There's a lot of incentive to actually just do nothing.
Well, I don't know about literally nothing, but
I don't know. I mean, when am I ever going to have time to do nothing?
when you're dead.
Yeah. So I don't want to waste it while I'm dead. I'm just like practicing and just like
Bingo. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if we explained that in the beginning. Probably not.
It doesn't matter. I'm glad that because you were very convincing just now, and I thought you had passed away spontaneously, which would have been kind of an amazing way to start the podcast, but it looks like you were just pulling a leg. You're playing possum, as they say. But no, that's all you'll be doing for theoretically eternity after you die. I don't think you spend too much time. Maybe every now and then.
And you won't be able to enjoy it because you'll be dead, is my argument.
How do you know that? That's what I thought. I mean, I guess you've been not alive before, but is that the same as being dead?
No.
I think if you're gonna think of something that would last in an ethereal way after you die, it's something about like your consciousness or the way you feel or something personal about you. But when you're born, you don't have any of that. Theoretically, right? Like you're just like you might have a little bit of like innate traits, but for the most part, like if you identify as like a musician or something like that, and you're like, my spirit will be a songbird when I pass away, you wouldn't know that if like you were an unborn baby. So it seems like being dead would be different than not being born yet, in that sense.
They're very different, in my opinion. Different in almost every way.
Yeah.
Besides the not existing part, which they have in common.
Right.
In this realm of existence.
Yes, well, of course. I guess the loophole would be reincarnation. Right? Because then you're never, like, if you're not born yet, you're just something else. So, you actually, or yeah, I guess the idea of an eternal soul is probably in a few different religions, but reincarnation in particular, that kind of answers what would it be like, like what would dying be like? Dying would be like becoming reborn as the next thing that you're supposed to be. What is not being born like? It's like being the thing before the thing you are now. So they actually have an answer for both in is that Buddhism that does animal reincarnation stuff?
Hinduism. I think Hinduism is
Hinduism.
traditionally the seat of reincarnation.
Okay.
But Buddhism does do that. I think that souls, or the idea of concept of soul or existence or something, like there could be a reserve. You could die on Earth and then as like a ladybug or something, and then be reincarnated as a bird. But maybe you don't. Sometimes you just don't get reincarnated right away. You're kind of put on a reserve. Maybe you exist in like some sort of bardo or some sort of other dimension. And then when it's time for you to be incarnated, then, you get manifested back in the dimension of physicality that we know. It contains everything in it,
I see.
There's really no way to prove that. Or prove it's not that.
But there may be an explanation, or may not be. But at the very least, if there's not, you would just be whatever you were before, I suppose. But I think if you're thinking of a soul or a spirit, I don't know. So maybe if you like, my heart really likes carpentry. I'm a carpenter at heart, and I'm always working the wood. That's my favorite thing to do, is work wood. You might believe that even if you aren't born yet, or you're a baby, because you have your eternal soul, you still have that propensity to work wood. And even though you hadn't done it yet, and you haven't grown into a person that builds beautiful birdhouses or something like that, you would still have that as part of your soul. Maybe some people believe that.
Well, maybe it's not the propensity to work with wood that you, I guess, not really inherit, but, have. Maybe it's just the propensity towards being aware of matter, or something more general that's, maybe less definable or quantifiable. Like different flavors of soul. I mean, there's ways of looking at it, like the gene keys. There's like 32 or 16 different types of existence one can have based on, the circumstances of your birth. There's many ways to look at it. I mean, Zodiac, obviously describes differences between individuals. It's not talking about different bodies. It's talking kind of about souls. There's kind of metaphysical quantification there. Different ways of looking at it. But as long as we constrain it to the plane of existence and know what we're talking about existence, it's easy to define and explore realms of non-existence. Shit that actually is theoretical.
Theoretically. Maybe. Perhaps. Point is, you were saying that being dead so being dead and not being born yet obviously are different. That's why I've different phrases for them. But, do you think they feel different?
That's kind of a trick question. Yes.
How would they differ?
Well, the strings of consciousness that exist on the quantum level have not been entropied.
If you have not been born yet, you mean?
If you have not been born.
Okay.
There is an entropy of consciousness from the inception of it to the point where it disintegrates. Through the laws of thermodynamics,
Okay.
there has to be. So that's the proof that I'm using to answer that question.
So yeah, so it would definitely have this effect because it is, matter changing and responding to electromagnetic energy and things like that.
Existence causes entropy. To have existed is to have changed the universe.
Right, but so what does that have to do with strings?
And then how different, one can measure with, like, quasars, but, like, that's not really a relevant measure. You can measure in whatever I said that.
Something about strings.
Strings, yeah. They're just theoretical switches that are either vibrating or not.
Almost like binary, right?
Yes, but it's not in a state of 1 or 0 at any time. It could be in various states in between 1 and 0.
Okay, so it's
which differentiates it.
And so and those are sort of in a meaningful way connecting all of reality together. So almost like in the background of the physical world we can observe with our current technology, because it's theoretical.
Right, with our current technology, we can observe things at 1 and 0 and -1. But
Is that antimatter?
There's evidence of, sure, antimatter or negatively charged matter.
Oh, okay. But you were saying that these strings would be affected by your consciousness having existed. And, I'm trying to figure out what you were saying about why being dead would have this effect on the universe that would exist after you died, but wouldn't exist until you lived.
Wait, were you asking specifically about that?
Yes.
I'm saying that's like a feature of existence.
What is?
That it changes the plane that you exist on.
Yeah, so I guess, but then why would you feel the persistence of or not the persistence of, but the effect of your consciousness on these strings? Like, I see how it's different, but...
Oh, I mean, you might not necessarily feel it.
It'd probably feel the same. Right?
We have pretty similar sensory organs, in the context of recognizing what's actually going on in the universe.
Yeah.
Relative.
Epidermis, your face balls, your face holes, all.
Like, we basically have, like, when our face balls are tickled, then, like, we know what's going on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we have no fucking clue.
We do need at least some combination of, like, face balls and holes to really have a grasp of what's happening. For the most part. I guess Helen Keller got there. Good for her.
Well, yeah. I mean, she got there because consciousness can make postulates that aren't based on observation.
Damn.
Thank transmission of information between minds,
And her nose worked. So some of her holes still worked. I'm pretty sure. I actually don't know that. I should Google that. Could Helen Keller smell things? I'm not going to do that. But yeah. It seems like not being born yet and being dead would probably feel the same.
What?
Well, isn't that what you were saying?
No, I'm saying that it would fundamentally be completely different. There's no way they could feel the same.
But you just said
There's
that
no-
we wouldn't. You just agree that we wouldn't have the organs to sense the universe in both cases.
Correct.
So it should feel equally not like anything.
Correct. But it doesn't.
I see. It's not terribly convincing. But
That's disconcerting.
What's that?
That's disconcerting. The fact that it's not convincing.
It does seem different though. And there definitely is you want it to be different. No one wants being dead to be the complete end. Maybe some people do. But I think that's
basically, I don't know. I mean, you can kind of look at consciousness like you never stop dying. Like consciousness is never in a state of death.
Yeah, I mean, technically,
it's like infinitesimally. It kind of infinitesimally wanes, and once the light bulb of consciousness in one person is extinguished, the effects that light bulb had on the other light bulbs still has an effect until those die off, and then eventually has nothing. Like if you look at consciousness as the waves it produces, as well as the producer of waves.
Then what?
What I said.
Yeah, but how does this affect how you would feel? That's my question. I agree that they're different, but it seems like, knowing what we know, they would most likely feel.
But you would never feel the way you felt before you were born. Ever. You can't say that you would in good confidence.
That's true, but like, I can not have any dreams, but like remember I was asleep, and it's a time where I'm not conscious, but I am aware of it. And there's different levels of that. You can be different amounts of awake and asleep. And, I could just categorize not being born yet as feeling particularly not conscious. And that I, kind of did experience it up until I woke up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, technically no, I'd never felt not being alive. The moment I was able to feel things, I must have been, at least to some extent, alive, and it would be silly, I think, to dispute that, but you make a good point. I don't really know what it feels like, but in another sense, I know what it doesn't feel like, at least. It doesn't feel like anything,
So by subtractive analysis, you can see how it might feel, because it feels nothing like you've ever experienced.
Yeah. It feels like no experience whatsoever. That's my memory of the experience. Now, I've forgotten plenty of things, That doesn't mean they didn't happen.
I don't remember not experience. I don't remember ever not constantly experiencing. And can never fathom not experiencing.
Right, and that's because ever since you were able to experience things, that's what was happening. But you don't remember everything you've experienced.
Of course not.
And so maybe there was a time where I had a recollection of not being born and I just forgot about it. That's also possible.
Very possible.
But unlikely. It seems like, because none of my things that make me alive and make me aware of my surroundings are working when I'm dead, and when I'm alive, when I'm not born yet, they would feel the same.
Like a baseline.
Well, like
That's like what our experience says makes sense to return to baseline, after leaving baseline.
it does seem that way. Even if there are these strings or other people that live on and are influenced by us, I guess I do kind of see how, in a sense, it is a little bit like part of our consciousness has persisted, but in a very literal sense, it hasn't. And regardless, we wouldn't feel that if we're dead.
Right. Okay. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but
You don't like it?
I think we investigated that idea completely.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I mean, certainly. So, so that's like, the limit, taking the limit of something. Like, the limit
Yes.
is, x approaches 10, so like with tangent, you could get that at a certain, asymptote that is going to positive infinity or negative infinity, depending on if you approach, I think it's like pi, from a negative end or from a positive end. I forget how you designate that, but if you approach this asymptote from one side, it'll tell you negative infinity is the what you get as you approach it. Positive infinity on the other side, but then if you look at not the limit, if you just look at the value at that point, it's undefined. So
Right.
the limit can really tell you some pretty important things. If you just look at the value, you just get undefined. You would not know that on one side is positive infinity and the other side is negative infinity unless you took the limit. So it sometimes seems really dumb and unnecessary. Why can't you just do the equation? But in that example, and in our being born, dying example, so we've been looking at being born as X approaches becoming alive, and being dead as X leaves becoming dead. So now we can look at the other sides. How does
maybe there's negative existence before existence?
Well, that's what we've been talking about.
Because we can only see the realm of existence or non-existence.
And on the other side of being born, we don't feel that. We don't remember that. Like, we don't remember becoming born, It would be interesting if someday there was a way to actually see what is in a fetus or whatever it is, a baby's head, while it's, right before it's time to come out, and then as it comes out and things like that. Like, that's gotta be...
It must be the most exciting moment of consciousness.
I mean, maybe it just sucks. It might really suck.
It's like the worst pain you ever feel.
It might really blow. But it could also be like, ooh, it's like pretty cool out here. Sup, dude? Hi, Mom. Like,
you're just like, here we go again. I know, I won't remember this, but I think I had a good time last time.
Yeah, possibly. That would be cool to be able to, like, safely get that information. I think we could probably try and get that information, but we'd have to jam a bunch of stuff into the baby's head. You probably shouldn't do that.
I can't think of any way modern science could help with this problem. Maybe in 3 years, try again. That's pretty much why I didn't want to be a neuroscientist, because of the limits of our time. Which is not there yet. when I took my major, I was under the assumption that we were more advanced as society. So
Oh, oops.
it's alright. I just got hungry instead.
Oft made mistake.
Worked out fine since.
Wait, what's that?
Everything's worked out fine since for me.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
But I'm imagining that even though not being born and being dead feel the same, becoming born and becoming dead feel different.
Well, you can probably compare them in a way.
It depends on the situation. You can die so many different ways.
Like the synapse becomes flooded with neurotransmitters,
Oh, on a chemical level.
and based, yeah. I mean, I did study this,
Mm-hmm.
but based on like, basically, if you have a shit ton of neurotransmitters, being released like into the synapses, it doesn't really matter which neurotransmitters there are. It's gonna have like a pretty overwhelming effect.
Okay. And is that what happens when you die?
It's been purported
Mm-hmm.
that that's what happens. Certain chemicals are released leading up to death, and then your synapses become flooded, and eventually they reach this action potential where they're able to just transcend existing or cease to exist or just burn out.
Oh.
Or instead of like just going dead like a light bulb, it's like the signal jumps out of the light bulb
Wow.
and it just diffuses into the air surrounding it.
So that, I mean, almost sounds like it could be at least related to things like near-death experiences or like my life flashed before my eyes kind of stuff. Because like, yeah, if your brain becomes certain that you are dying, and it did that, then you would have that experience, and then you didn't die. You could talk about it afterwards, but
Right, that's the whole psychedelic experience.
yeah.
The Tibetan Book of the Dead and all of that good stuff that has real insight into the realms of consciousness. Because if you think about life and existence, there's like different flavors of death, and that's all of existence.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. The only thing that appears to stop existing would be your consciousness. Your body's still there. The only thing that does seem to transition from inexistence to not is your consciousness. But your death is certainly very real.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we can necessarily say that consciousness ceases to exist at death.
Right.
But we can say we can't measure it anymore once someone dies.
Yeah.
In that source of consciousness previously. So that's where we're at.
Well, I mean, that does sort of imply that it's because it is gone.
Yes, that is an.
That's definitely the Occam's razor simplest explanation for why it's no longer measurable is because it's not there anymore. Now
Well, it's no longer measurable there. That we could say for sure.
Right, but we also know that, like, if I'm playing Oblivion on my computer, and then a rock falls through my ceiling and destroys my computer, and Oblivion leaves my screen, I'm not like, where did it go? And like look around the air, like, I know that thing I was seeing is generated by a series of electromagnetic pulses in this box to my right. And I'm very similar in that respect. I'm basically doing the same thing. Better at some things, worse at others, but regardless, if a rock fell on me, like, my whatever I'm experiencing similarly, we have no reason to believe it's going to float up into the air or do anything besides just, like, because, like, so, like, so that might be a really good analogy. The world of Oblivion, maybe some people will disagree with me, but the Elder Scrolls world is fictional. And, so, even though it appears to be a real thing with a lot of different intricate moving parts on my computer screen and generated by my computer, it is... Wait, what's that?
That could be the soul. That's the analogy you're going for?
Well, no. I wasn't going to use that word. That, like, world of sounds and experiences and images and characters is all fictional, and it doesn't really exist in front of me on my screen, but I can sense it and I'm able to sense it and experience it. So the consciousness might be very similar. It's this generated, it's not on a flat screen, but it's this generated system that's very complicated of images and sounds and experiences and characters that can interact in different ways. And when my processor and hard drive fail, it just as it was fictional and not really there before, it continues to be fictional and not really there after.
But it was measurable before the event, and immeasurable after the event. So logic says it's not there anymore. But we could just be unable to measure it anymore.
This is true. But to follow with the computer analogy, we do know that the brain is working in a very similar way, sending electrical impulses to different parts that mean different things and cause different things to happen. And
if there's like a cloud that, you can, this consciousness is on, you can access this information like a state in a game that's obviously not accessible without power, but when it has power, is accessible and cannot be destroyed by a falling rock.
Well, if the rock destroyed the power source, then it would stop existing. But at the point, so what I wanted to get to is, now that we've brought the idea of the computer in my brain, like, and we're talking about consciousness, which may or may not exist, in a sense that it persists or anything like that. How am I conscious and the computer isn't?
I could say that I'm conscious that other beings are conscious that other beings are conscious, and I'm not conscious whether machines are conscious of whether beings or machines are conscious.
So that's the definition of consciousness, then?
Yes.
I mean, it sounds pretty good, because that's like a big thing that is important, I've read at least, because I'm not an expert on any of this, but Oblivion, actually, I know a good deal about that game, but almost everything else you've spoken of, I'm a novice, but humans' ability to, what were we just talking about?
Oblivion?
Before that.
We're talking
thinking about okay, right. A thing that is important for humans is it was in your answer. We are aware of other things thinking, and of their ability to be aware of the fact that we think. That series of logical steps doesn't appear to be in a lot of other organisms. I think that other apes might have that, but I think it's largely you could argue it's something that makes us human. So, and if we're going to argue we're the ones that are conscious, that's more or less what you were saying, is that being conscious of other people being conscious, and also being conscious of them, being conscious of other things being conscious. That basically sounds like it could be a really good definition for consciousness. Like that sounds pretty good. The problem is if chimpanzees and gorillas do that, then we probably shouldn't be putting them in cages.
Yeah. Clear.
Like, if that's the line, we might be messing up there. It's really murky. I don't know enough about them.
Okay, the point I was going to bring up is, I mean, I don't know if I previously brought this up, but if a consciousness exists and it is able to make a measurable change in the environment, which then brings about a change in consciousness, if the original source of consciousness ceases to exist from death or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
changes it makes can continue to affect consciousness in a way that consciousness would affect consciousness. So can you say that the consciousness has been completely extinguished with death?
It purely depends on your definition. I think if you're going to be really technical, then consciousness, it doesn't literally exist, and it's kind of just a fun word. And it doesn't, like temperature and gravity mean something, if you're going to be really technical. And I think when it comes down to it, consciousness is not something that scientists agree is like those words. And that we definitely have electrical activity going on in our brains, but and you can put electrodes in people's brains and measure the activity, and you can dissect a human brain after the person dies. If you're feeling gutsy, you can dissect their brain before they die. But regardless, you can measure certain things, and you can say these things are here. And generally, that's the only things that are considered to be there, and you will never find a nugget of consciousness when exploring their brain by any means that we know of so far. But that's kind of what we got to go with, right? Like, we can't. we do need to go with what we know, at least for now. It's good to explore it, but in a technical sense, it kind of just doesn't exist at all.
But in a technical sense, it does. How can you program a computer to react to consciousness without it being aware of consciousness?
Well, so that's not a good way to refute whether or not it exists, because if it doesn't exist, then that question doesn't mean anything.
Well, can machines detect whether or not something exists?
I mean, machines measure temperature and stuff.
So then they can measure consciousness too, is my argument.
But that doesn't mean consciousness is real or not.
If there's a program which to run demands a very high level of consciousness, like Oblivion,
but
then seeing how well you're playing the game could be an indicator of how conscious you are of all the factors needed to be successful at the game.
I mean, it could, but ultimately what we can measure that we already know is that the former is generated by computing power and my graphics card and my processor, and there's no consciousness. Once again, if you dissect my computer, you will not find any nuggets or trace values of consciousness. And if you bludgeon me to death and look at my brain, same story.
But I'm saying a game that can only be played by consciousness. Of course,
I can make a program that could play Oblivion.
Right.
Someone might have already done that.
Programs can be conscious in the way that humans can in that particular context.
Well, not just that one. Like, someone made an AI that basically broke records in like 30 different Atari games, and those have been around for decades. People playing them, and it just came up. All they gave, it was called Deep Something. A lot of these AIs are called Deep Something. I could probably try and Google it, but it basically was only given the pixel values on the screen. So it just like there's a white pixel at like like let's use like battleship numbers. So A1 is a white pixel, and then A2 is a white pixel, and A3 is a black pixel, and it doesn't. Computers don't know what white and black are, right? It's just a number. Or a set of 3 numbers, the RGB values that represent. Well, actually, since it's Atari, it's probably fewer than 256 each, but it's some number. So just all it has is a grid of numbers per second, or per fraction of a second. It was able to learn how to play all these games. Deep Mind Atari, something like that. But yeah, I mean, that I think is a good example of how we need to really be thinking about what consciousness means, because it either is just sort of something that doesn't have a real scientific meaning, or it might, if it does, it's likely we've misattributed it, and a bunch of other things would fall under the definition.
I think as long as we look at it as a subjective quantity, which can be quantified in a lot of various different ways, but maybe not exactly ubiquitously.
Yeah, certainly not in a way that's agreed upon, right? And yes, yet. But for now, it does seem like we are very much doing the same thing that computers are doing. And, if I turn off my computer, have I murdered somebody? If I accidentally knock my computer over, is it manslaughter? You talked about manslaughter the other day. I forget why.
The arson thing. And I found out that there's no arson for manslaughter. I mean, there's no manslaughter for arson. Either you meant to burn them or you didn't mean to burn them. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you figured that out. I think it's called Deep Mind, but that's the Atari thing. But yeah, we probably, I mean, there just is no scientifically agreed upon, like, real measurement or proof that consciousness isn't just some way we describe what is happening in our own minds, but, like, it isn't really, there's no molecule, there's no subatomic particle, it's all just, this is what, if you take, meat and bones and lots of evolution and electromagnetic shit, and you mix it all together, this is what you get. But, like, you can also mix a bunch of metal parts and electromagnetic stuff together, and there doesn't seem to be really this fundamental particle that separates one from the other.
Right. It's more. It's like the interactions between the particles that it matters more than what the particles are themselves.
Yeah. So,
like, temperature isn't the state of a single molecule.
Yeah. I guess that might be a better way to start looking at it. Is like so let's say there is a state of consciousness. It must have a list of requirements. It doesn't seem like it's easy, so maybe a list of dozens or hundreds of things that need to be present in the brain, and also, your ability to, how important is it to be conscious that you and I can see? That is a huge question. So my computer cannot see anything. Well, actually, you can see me right now because I have a webcam on, but, like, normally it doesn't see anything, and that doesn't seem to bother it. There are people that are blind, and they're obviously still conscious people, so it doesn't seem to be that important. But, like, it does kind of seem like the ability to picture things, the ability to have an image of the physical world, and the ability to also have the image of a made-up world. To be able to have both of those in your head, in your system, in your system that creates a state of consciousness, maybe that is one of the parameters. But I guess maybe it's just that no one's agreed on what those are yet. But right now, we need to be making sure we're not just sort of putting ourselves on a pedestal and arbitrarily, just because we like ourselves. Because humans, and scientists included, have done that all the time.
As conscious beings who can measure our own consciousness in these supposedly confident, ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us feel special. We're the only ones doing it.
Right. Or so we think.
Yes, or so we think. It does seem important, but we need to always be objective, especially if we're trying to be scientific. So we need to be aware that, if this is how we excuse certain behaviors and certain actions, we should make sure we're not being arbitrary about it. So I mentioned putting gorillas and apes in cages, and that's a tricky one. That's it's like trophy hunting. Have you heard about how trophy hunting is a lot of the money goes to conserve the animals?
That's irony.
It is wild, but apparently, having a good array of elephants and lions and zebras and other organisms, without getting attacked by bandits and without drought ruining everything is expensive and complicated. But if you can occasionally have one lion get shot to pay for all of it, and you need to cull the lions anyway, why not? So there's a lot of conservation effort that is funded by people paying to shoot the animals, which is mind-blowing. But apparently it's working. And it's still maybe I think as a final way to solve the problem, it blows, right? But if it's the only way to keep them from going extinct until there's a better way to prevent bandits and elephants will destroy the environment. Elephants are kind of assholes, and they will destroy the environment around them. Farmland, just trample it. So that's one of the reasons it's so hard to have a farm and make a living doing that in certain places where there's elephants that might destroy it. If that could be better managed, then maybe we won't need to shoot as many of them. It seems like the road to managing most of them and saving all of them, or nearly all of them, is being solved by shooting a few of them. Wait, what were you going to say?
I don't know what to say to that, really.
The analogy I was going to make about the gorillas and other apes that are caged up, or maybe being experimented on as well, is that the ones in cages at the zoo ultimately get people interested in zoology and conservation and protecting apes. And so once again, it's kind of it sucks in a way to have them there. Oh, there's a cat. Hi, kitty. It's a Sadie. It's good to have. It's bad to have them there in some kind of obvious way because you've taken them from their home and have caged them up. But if it's part of the process of saving them, once again we have a really, really murky situation. But ultimately, whether or not that's right or wrong, it hinges a lot on what is consciousness, which is largely not agreed on, and whether or not it exists, which in a lot of senses it does not.
But there are ways to measure it without proving that it exists.
I mean, I don't think there's an agreed upon consciousness measurement. I don't know what unit you would use, but I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I don't know what unit I would use.
There was a guy who tried.
Okay, so what did he use? Coins?
Oh, I forget what he called the unit, but using his science, a DVD player is about like 2 million times as conscious as a human being.
Well, he clearly did the math wrong.
Did he? How do you know?
Of course
How
he
do
did
you,
the math
but
wrong.
like, but you don't really, like, he could be right. Like, DVD players could be way more, conscious than we are. Once again, if we don't have, like, a unit for it and we can't measure it, like, who's to say?
We could debate the parameters on how one can measure consciousness indefinitely.
Maybe. Hopefully not. Regardless, it's not agreed upon now. And as a result, you really can't scientifically accurately say humans are more or less consciousness than an orangutan or a DVD player.
Right.
But it's important to figure it out, because that's...
Well, in certain contexts, you'd see, like, human beings are more conscious on a tennis court than bugs, usually.
I don't know how you came to that conclusion.
Really?
Well, prove it. Like, how do you know? Like, what did you measure to come to that conclusion?
I did not measure anything.
How much more of what does the human have than the bug?
How many more neurons? Many.
Well, don't whales have way more neurons than we do?
Yeah. So I'm not saying whales are less conscious than humans. That would be stupid.
And then what is a neuron but, like, series of possibly, like, electromagnetic signals, like the ones in my computer or DVD player? And then now is the DVD player the most conscious of the bug and the human?
Well, in the context of being on, in the context of being off, it's way less conscious than any human being that's alive.
Probably. But if the DVD player's on, and you're just trying to measure it by electromagnetic activity, like the electromagnetic activation of neurons, then you could once again go back to the computer argument and say that, like, certain vending machines are more conscious than humans,
When there's money in them.
So, but it's an important thing to figure out. I think it's important to know it's not fully agreed upon. This cat is loud. It's not. Jesus. Fully
Not
agreed.
Jesus.
No, it's not Jesus. It's a cat, and it's not your cat. It's my cat. It's not fully agreed upon what consciousness is or how to measure it, and if we're using it as what keeps some living things in cages and others not, we should be trying to figure it out. In addition to the fact that it's cool, and there's probably a lot of other reasons why it would be good to have a better understanding of consciousness, be it real or just, wishful thinking.
I guess there's no way to prove how wishful thinking really is.
I mean, I guess you could argue, like, it just, you could represent it with, like, a ratio, like, if you're like, oh man, I'm I'm 1% sure I'm gonna win the lottery this week, and, like, it's really 0.0000000. You're like, you could just divide those, or make the ratio of the 1% to the real number, and that's how much wishful thinking they had. But yeah, if it's not with numbers, it gets way harder. Like, I hope my chicken laid, 2 eggs today, but, like, the average number of eggs for a chicken is 1, so his wishful thinking is 2 to 1. Damn, we're so good at this.
Twice as optimistic as he should be.
See, we were able to figure that out and how to measure that in, like, 5 seconds.
Like, cat could not do that.
No.
I'm sorry, you're
but...
cool, bud.
Cats are great, but they don't operate computers or write, like, poetry as well as most humans.
Not to say they're not more intelligent.
Right. Or more conscious, or less conscious. You got any last words? I think we put in a pretty good amount of figuring out the problems of the world.
Yeah, we definitely have like 2 hours worth of stuff, but maybe it's time. Maybe this could just be like our, I don't know. Well, this is the first attempt we had at making 4-1E podcast. This is a historic session that we should revisit and then have some feedback from.
Absolutely. We are not decided on where we're going to have our podcast yet hosted exclusively, but probably nowhere. It'll probably be on SoundCloud, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, maybe Spotify too. I'm not sure if that's more complicated. We'll have it everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it.
But I will not be acknowledging anything to do with Facebook.
He will not acknowledge anything
Instagram,
to do.
I will acknowledge. So I'm a hypocrite, but whatever.
That's delightful. And yeah, we'll have information about that's more specific, but we will certainly be in those places. And we hope you enjoyed the chat. If you've got any ideas about consciousness or bats and SARS or Oblivion questions, if we said anything completely wrong, we would love to.
That's why we speak. We speak to.
We would love
to be proven wrong.
Yes. So definitely just keep it to yourself and don't tell. No, I'm just kidding. You should definitely illuminate us.
Let us know some stuff if you can.
Yeah, and you don't even need to be nice to us. You could be really mean to us if you want. Go nuts.
Speak for yourself.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next time on Fort 1E.